Welcome into the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network, presented by Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by Shawn Smith. Shawn, how the heck are you?
I have no complaints, Jack Pilgrim. How are you?
We made it back, California, there and back. Airport experience. Are we good? How'd it go? I got to get a feel for you.
Flight back was a rough flight, though. Turbulence was bad. People were throwing up in bags, like no joke. Like people were actually getting sick.
For somebody who has never been on an airplane, how did that work out for you?
I was like, this is bad. I was just sitting over there, just looking out the window the whole time, just chilling. It actually didn't bother me.
Man,
I survived.
I'm proud.
No more cross country trips to Boise, Idaho by car.
There you go. I texted you as you got the Wi-Fi on the flight. So like you seemed calm in the midst of it. How long did it take for you to kind of overcome that initial, because I know when it hits you, like just being on flights, I know that like once the plane starts, the speed picks up on the runway. And I know you just kind of had that, oh no, here we go. And then like, what was the moment that it kind of, all right, I got this, I'm cool?
Probably like 10 minutes in, I'd say. Like,
really?
Yeah, I was pretty calm. Like I was oddly calm at the airport too. Like I wasn't, because I was like, oh man, what's it going to feel like when am I going to be like anxious? I was calm because I was getting to go across the country and coach basketball. And I think I had that on my mind. And then I was like, this isn't that big of a deal. But once I got through all of that's what that sound is, that's what this is. Oh yeah, this thing does turn, and that's what you feel briefly for a second. So once that stuff became like, I guess, normal movements and things and sounds, I was like, this isn't that bad. This is actually pretty relaxing. And now I'm cool with it. Whatever. I just want to book a flight just to do it again.
For like fun vacation
purposes. Yeah, for fun, instead of having to spend so much time, coaching or something. I'm actually going to go back out there in July. I'm going to go to Stanford and spend a few days and work in their elite camps. So I'll be back out there.
There you go. We love to see it. Vacation was incredible for me. Very, just you kind of hit a point with the off season where you're like, I've hit my peak. I've kind of hit my breaking point of I need to disconnect for a minute. Like it's just been a lot. Chaos is at an all-time high. I just need to kind of tone it down for myself. And so that was a lot of fun going out to San Diego and seeing the zoo and taking little man out to do all those fun things. Really, really enjoyed just kind of getting away for a little bit. But a lot happened while I was gone. It was kind of weird to just be a fan for a minute and not have to write about it and talk about it and do the rapid reactions and, get interviews and do all that stuff. So it was different just kind of being on the outside looking in for a change and just watching it all unfold. It was fun. Biggest news probably, we got some scheduling updates and got a couple different things, but the biggest news why we're here today, because we're going to have Reece Potter on, newest Kentucky Wildcat, Lexington Catholic's own, a legend of Lexington Catholic, as Mark Pope put it. He put pen to paper with the Kentucky Wildcats. He is coming home after spending a couple seasons in Miami of Ohio. Before we bring him on, very excited to bring Reece on to talk about his commitment and just why and how long it took to he hit the portal late March and committed when he did, just kind of why returning home was on his radar and why he found Lexington to be his coming back home to play for his hometown Kentucky Wildcats, just what that means and how he got to that decision. We're very excited to bring him on. But I guess before that happens, Shawn, your immediate reaction to bringing on Reece Potter to add him to as roster scholarship number 13 for the 2025-2026 season.
I think it's a cool story. I think it's anytime you can bring a kid back home that is playing. And Miami's one of the schools that I went to on my tour back in the fall. And I know Reece was injured and coming back during that time, so I didn't get to see him on the court, but obviously saw him there. And it's cool, one, because 11th region kid, me coaching in the 11th region, that's nice to see. Obviously, I got to Douglas a year after Reece had left, so I never got to coach against Reece. But I like his game. I like the fit, and I'm excited to see how this unfolds over the next few months in this next season.
Well, I'm excited to bring him on right now. Reece Potter, Kentucky signee. Let's see if there we go. Reece, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Nothing much. How are you? Glad to join the show.
Man, so obviously been a hectic week for you. I know you've been doing your little media tour and kind of
sure.
Reaching a new level of superstardom. But how do you feel just kind of a week removed from your big time decision?
I feel great. I mean, it was a decision, dream come true for sure. So, I mean, all the hecticness is kind of out of the way. So, I'm able to, relax and kind of just enjoy the decision I was able to make now.
Has reality kind of set in for you that like I'm home, I'm wearing, I grew up a diehard Kentucky fan and now I am a Kentucky Wildcat?
It's sort of setting in for sure. I mean, it's still a dream come true. So, I'm just waiting to put on the jersey for the first time, be able to walk out to Rupp Arena, and I think that's gonna be the biggest thing.
So you enter the portal late March. Obviously, you hear from a ton of different schools of all different levels. We know the UNCs of the world and UConns. You hear from the best of the best, but I'm sure there were dozens upon dozens. What was that process like for you to get from late March to hear from all the schools, but you don't kind of ramp up on a decision until you did ended up, early May signing with Kentucky? Just what was that month of April like for you?
It was really crazy. The phone was always ringing, just, different people talking to you, trying to spiel their pitch on why you should go to the school. So it was crazy. It was like, it was really cool, hearing from all these schools, the Hubert Davises, Dan Hurleys. I mean, it's just wild. I mean, those are the people that I grew up watching, you watch on TV every day. So it's wild for those people, you get that call that says maybe Hubert Davis. It's kind of, or maybe Mark. It's wild for sure, but it was fun. But once Kentucky called me, it was like, it's time to. I'm done talking to these people. Let's get to the business.
So most people commit. They take some quick visits, commit within a week or two. Just why did you hold off as long as you did, and just kind of see the process through as long as you did?
I mean, Kentucky, when Kentucky called me, it was, a dream come true. But it's still like, I had to make the best decision for myself. But always in the back of my mind, it was like, you got to go there. Like, you got to go there. But my parents were very supportive. They were like, just take your time, just kind of see what's all out there. And then once they contacted me, I took a week to settle down a little bit. Right away, I was like, yeah, I'm going there. My dad was like, relax. Like, I know that's your dream school, but just take a week for yourself and really understand what that would mean for you, and if that's the decision you want. And then so after that week, I kind of got down to it, contacted the other schools, like, what's the deal here? And then I always knew I was going here, so it was easy after that. I was like, I called my parents. I was like, I'm going there. And they were like, yeah, we always knew you were going to do that, but we just wanted you to make the best decision for yourself. So I'm glad it's over, and I'm glad to be able to be a part of this now.
How hard was it to, I'm sure all these schools promising the world, saying, hey, we'll give you all this money, we'll give you all the playing time and shots. How hard was it to kind of sift through? I'm sure a lot of it was real, some of it, BS to some extent, but how hard was it to kind of sift through? Like, man, I'm people are all over me. Versus kind of getting to that point where it's like, okay, now it's time to go through those schools and kind of settle down on, okay, here's the reality. Here's what is actually next for me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would definitely say everybody who's gone through that process of getting recruited. It's definitely, it's a dream come true to get recruited by these schools, but it's definitely not the most fun process for sure for a lot of people. So, like you said earlier, people promise you the world, but there's only a certain amount of minutes you can play a game, a certain amount of shots you can, shoot a game. So, going the second time around, coming from, I've already done it from high school pretty much. So my second time around, I was kind of able to get rid of all the nonsense people are promising you, and just kind of realizing it's a business at the end of the day. And, coaches want you, they're there. That's their job. So they want the players, and they're just going to kind of promise you a little bit of everything so they can get you there on campus. And after that, you're kind of at their mercy. So, it was definitely, it was a good process. So I was able to get to it my second time around.
Shawn, jump in there.
Yeah, Reece, now that you're a part of this, you said you took a few days and kind of went through your options, but now that you are a part of this, how do you see yourself impacting this team and this program?
I come from a winning program last year. We were in the MAC championship. I know that's not the SEC, obviously, but we had 20 plus wins last year. So just anything that can impact winning. I was able to see how it was done last year at a good level, and that's what I'm going to bring. Energy every day in practice because that's what it provides. The hardest thing to do is practice. The games are the fun part, the easy part. So just bringing energy every day to practice and just pushing everybody to get better, and then hopefully they'll push me to get better. So it's gonna be a fun time next year.
And that's actually what I was going to ask you next was what were some of those experiences at Miami that can kind of help you in this transition to this level of college basketball? What are some of those things that you can take from there to here?
I played at a mid-major level, but we played against, I've played against people at all levels. I played against Michigans. I played against the Indianas. I played against the Ohio State. So I've seen kind of like what that level, takes to, win at those levels. So, we won a lot of games last year. And, they came with preparation. This is going to be my third year of college. So I kind of know what it takes every day for some of, these younger guys that are coming in. So hopefully I'll be able to provide some wisdom for them and, hopefully help them reach their dreams and aspirations, because these freshmen coming in and they're studs. So, their goals are to get to the NBA. And so hopefully I can, provide a little bit of knowledge that I've from the last 2 years to help them get to their dreams.
Reece, I heard you in another interview say that, winning MAC champ, you had those hard conversations with your coaches at Miami and saying like, I'd love the pursuit of winning MAC championships and what kind of happens here, but now is my time to go compete for national championships. Like, when did that reality set in for you that is what your calling was at the next, the next stages and in the kind of the back end of your college career?
Yes, sir. I would probably say it comes from like high school. Playing for Lexington Catholic, the always goal wasn't to win cities or regions. So like if you did that, like nobody cares. So always the goal was let's go win a state championship, let's go compete. So that's kind of always where my head's always been at. And so last year, the goals were to try to get a couple upsets, have a good year, and then compete for a MAC championship. And that's fun and all, but like I want to hang banners and I want to win national titles. So that's kind of always I want to go for the gold. So that's kind of the conversations me and Coach Steele had, and that's kind of always been my thing because I feel like that's the most fun part. Let's play in March and let's see what happens from there.
I think you're on mute. I'll ask one while you're on mute. When it came to roll and just kind of what those conversations were, like I said, I'm sure other schools promised the world and you could play all these minutes. Just what were those conversations like with Kentucky in terms of like, hey, this is what you're going to be both now in your next season for us and, long term down the road?
That's the one thing that I really took out of it. Coach Pope was really real with me. He says, we got NBA guys coming in. Those centers in front of me are lottery picks. So like he was really honest with me, and so I didn't have to really deal with any of the promises or anything with me because he just says, the best players play, and if you're one of those, then you're on the court. If not, you're not. So he was really honest with me. I just want to impact winning next year. So that's kind of where I'm going to do, whether that's, in practice, if I'm on the court, whatever it takes, because, that's the most fun part. So, nobody really cares how many minutes somebody plays. It's, how many wins you had, who'd you beat, and, what'd you accomplish that year.
Reece, when you turn on the tape and you looked at Kentucky this past season and the things they do offensively, like what are the areas of your game that you think fits best to what Mark Pope wants to do with this team?
I haven't I've watched a little bit, but I would probably compare the offense to it's kind of like a run and gun, like kind of like a football. It's kind of like, get out and go. So that's always been my fun parts. I don't like the whole half court, set up everything like certain college teams do. Let's, set everything up and get things going. I like to get out and run and shoot as many threes as possible. So that's the fun part of basketball for me because that's kind of what the NBA is turning into. Let's get the quickest, best shot we can, and let's get one on the rim. So that's what I'm looking forward to next year.
And I guess to kind of piggyback off that, is there an area of your game that you're prioritizing the most in this offseason before making this leap to Kentucky?
Oh, it's definitely getting bigger and stronger. I feel like everybody knows that, that's going to turn into, more block shots, more rebounds, being able to battle people for position. So that's kind of the goal for sure, put on some weight, gain some muscle, and kind of see where I am at the end of the summer.
Reece, is it weird for you as a Lexington native? Like most people, when they're coming in, it's brand new area, trying to figure out just what like the vibe of BBN is and learning the campus and all those things. You're new to Mark Pope, new to this program in its current era, but you're totally familiar with Lexington, totally familiar with the fan base. Is it kind of a weird dynamic for you to be the seasoned vet, but also, seasoned vet in Lexington, but also a newcomer for Mark Pope?
Yeah, it's definitely a little different. I'll tell a funny story. So like when I came on my visit or whatever, so, I met with Coach Pope and they were like, so like, do you want to like tour Lexington? Like, you want to visit campus? And I was like, I've been here too many, like all my friends go here. Like I'm here all the time in the summer. Like I kind of know where everything is. And they were like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Cause I kind of told the thing I could give them a tour. I could probably show them a few places they don't know about. So, it's a little different for sure. I've been in Lexington my whole life. I know where everything is, but it's definitely, I know what Big Blue Nation's about, but I didn't realize at this magnitude how blessed I am to be a part of this. They kind of, they've kind of taken me in. I'm a Lexington boy, so they're kind of loving me right now. So I really appreciate it for sure.
And we always ask players on their way out, like, the guys that were on last year's roster on their way out. So what were your favorite food spots? What was you're on your way in and you can say what your favorite, so like, what are your favorite Lexington food spots and places you like to go and hang out?
So I'm a big pies and pints guy. That was always the thing before basketball games. You can just go up the elevator right there. So it was kind of like, get some pizza and then you got the games right there. And then probably my all-time favorite is Local Taco. That's a place. If they want to hook your boy up with some free tacos, I wouldn't complain. So, but that's probably the staple. You're able to just get there, get some food, get good tacos, and I'm there probably twice a week, probably too many times. So that's probably my staple for sure.
So what NIL's for at Local Taco. If you're listening, understand that's why we're doing this. We're getting, making sure.
My messages are open if they want to let me know.
Shawn, if you want to jump back in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, Reece, like, how many conversations have you been able to have with the guys coming in and like the guys on this team? And if you have, like, what have those been like?
One of the things is I've always known Malachi Moreno. We always played each other in high school. So when I kind of told him, like, Coach Pope has called me, Coach Feger has been recruiting me, he was like, if you don't commit right now, I'll come to your house. And like, so I was like, so me and him have a great relationship. And then, I've always known Jasper. He went to Woodford County. I've known his dad, great family. So, I know a couple of people on the team. Then, Trent, I've played against a couple of times. So, I have some good relationships with a couple of them. And I'm looking forward to, meeting everybody else because Coach Pope, emphasizes, having a good locker room and a good culture, and that like emphasizes winning for sure. I mean, the best teams, love each other on and off the court because they're more than just teammates. They're kind of friends, and so that promotes winning. So those are the guys he's recruited this year. So I'm looking forward to meeting them all because apparently they're all great guys. So looking forward to it.
How crazy? Yeah, go for it, Shawn.
Well, I was going to say, how cool is that when you look at this and there's 3 local guys that are now coming into this thing together with you and Malachi and Jasper. How cool is that? Well, being from this state, following this program, and now you 3 get to represent it and actually wear that across your chest together.
It's wild. We all dream about that when we're younger, but I don't think any of us were ever like, we're all going to be on the same team finally, because I've never played with any of them. So I'm looking forward to, finally stop having to guard them and scout them and, finally be able to play with them because they're great players. But, it's definitely something different. I don't feel like in the other eras, we never really had, people that lived in Lexington on Kentucky. So it's kind of wild for sure.
Give your scouting report of those other 3 guys, the Kentuckians.
You just kind of have to hope. I'm not gonna lie on a couple of those. You just kind of live. They're both super talented players. I mean, they're 5-star McDonald's All-Americans for a reason. So they're coming in to kill next year. So I'm looking forward to playing with them.
I had this question kind of in my back pocket for later in the show, but I'll ask you now since the topic's up. King of the court with the four Kentuckians, you, Trent, Jasper, Malachi. Who wins?
I mean, I have to say myself. I don't think Moreno either all of them can guard me. I'm not gonna lie. So, but I'd probably say Jasper if I had to put my money on it. If I was a betting man, for sure. I've seen all the clips and I've seen him always growing up. He's very shifty and hard to guard. But it's probably hard to root against the seasoned vet Trent too. He's been there for a couple of years, so I feel like he's definitely got the hot spots. He knows his spots in the craft center, so he probably he's got a little home court advantage for sure.
3 dribbles, top of the key. What is your here is how I'm going to beat you in King of the Court.
They have to defend the shot. So, I'm not gonna do anything like Jasper and Trent, start comboing people up. So, if they don't drop it, a lot of pump fakes, a pivots and just gotta get them in the air because if I don't, Moreno or one of them are gonna throw it in the third row. So
Shawn, do you have
Yeah,
anything else? Yeah.
we know this schedule's still kind of playing its way out and things, but is there a game that you're looking at that when you're like, wow, I'm going to get to play for Kentucky? Is there one that you're looking forward to the most?
I would have to say Louisville. I mean, it's always the big thing for Kentucky. It's always, that's the little brother for sure. You always got to hate on them. Growing up in Lexington, you're a Kentucky fan. And you go across the border, you're a Louisville fan. So growing up, my dad's from Louisville, but he's a Kentucky fan. But all of his family are Louisville fans. So it's always funny to hate on them every year when they lose and they hate on us when they win. So I'm looking forward to that game for sure.
Matt G asked a great question. How's your L's down form come along? Have you been practicing since you've signed?
I'm not. Is that even allowed now? Like, I don't know, what's going on in college sports.
Absolutely. But ask Brandon Garrison when you move in early June. Just ask Brandon Garrison because I think he has perfected it just about as well as anybody else in recent memory.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely know it. It's definitely L's down for sure. You can't support them for sure.
Awesome. Well,
it's a hideous red too.
See, you're getting it. We're working in the right direction. I asked on KS board for a bunch of fan questions. We can run through some of those if you're ready for them.
Let's get it. Let's do it.
All right. Hoochie Man says, did any of the players reach out to him and recruit him to Kentucky?
I mean, obviously Malachi did. He was the one I kind of told the most. That I was getting recruited by. So I would definitely say him for sure. And then I know a lot of the managers, so they were all recruiting me because those are all Lexington boys for sure. So I'd probably say them too for sure.
Love that. Aside from basketball, what are you most looking forward to about being back in Lexington?
What am I looking forward to? I'd probably say easily my friends. They're looking forward to it. They're all hitting me up. Can I get Big Blue Madness tickets? Can I get these tickets? So it's definitely going to be play in front of my friends again. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
What was it like for them to just kind of go through the process of, holy crap, my lifelong friend from Lexington is now going to be a Kentucky Wildcat? What was that realization like for them?
It was wild for sure. A lot of them were mad at me. So I told my two closest friends because I was I didn't want to tell anybody. I kind of wanted to catch them off guard because I was telling all my friends the other schools that were recruiting me. I was I got to keep this one quiet because what if it doesn't work out? Then they're gonna be mad at me. And I'm it's no one it's not my fault. It's no one's fault. Some things just don't work out in the business world. So when I finally committed, my phone was blowing. It was wild. I was actually in an academic meeting and she took my phone. She was you gotta get to work. Your phone's ringing too much. So she took my phone. So it was kind of wild. So looking forward to it for sure.
That's awesome. For the love of the game, this is a good one because we just got Mark Pope press conference yesterday. So this is very, very fresh. Does Mark Pope use the words beautiful and special when he's recruiting as much as he does in press conferences?
Wow. He definitely says special a lot now that I'm thinking about it. He everything he's it's so special, it's just so special. He uses it probably 3 times a sentence. I'm not gonna lie. He's a very just positive and upbeat guy. So, he's definitely got a couple sayings that I'm catching on right now. So hopefully, I'll be able to, get some good impersonations by my senior year of him.
Very beautiful and special answer there. Do you remember the first time you went to Rupp to watch Kentucky play, and who did they play? I like that part.
Wow, I honestly don't remember the first time I went, but one of the biggest memories is probably when they played Richmond. They played Richmond at home, and it was a tough game. It was a tough game. I was able to have some courtside tickets, and that was probably the first game I remember. But I've seen some great games, a lot of great wins for sure. I went and watched them play Bellarmine with a couple of my ex teammates, and watching Oscar Tshiebwe, and then it was really fun.
Big game, you need to get hyped, but you only get one song to do so. What is that song?
Oh, I'm probably gonna have to put some Young Boy on. I don't know what song, but it's definitely one of him. So, but there's definitely some sleepers for sure. I have some Rihanna or Adele. Get you going for sure.
Oh, Rihanna, I like that. This one I'm going to change it up a little bit. So you have to model who did you model your game after? I need one person you modeled that's not Kentucky related and somebody that is Kentucky related.
Ooh, who would I say? I'd probably say my favorite player to watch right now is Nikola Jokic. I wish I was as good as him and as big as him, but it's just the way he's able to impact the game. Some nights he has 20 points, but it's like he's got 20 rebounds and 20 assists, and you're like, it's insane. He doesn't do it completely at the free throw line. It's like some of these other players, so it's just really impressive for sure. And then probably somebody I model my game after that played here. I'd like to say DeMarcus Cousins, but I'm definitely not enforceable as him. He's one of my favorite players growing up. Just how much he dominated the game.
Yeah, my all-time favorite big at Kentucky. So that's definitely a good one. Big Blue playing 24 says, I'd like to know what Mark Pope's pitch was, being looked at as the 13th player. What are your expectations for your first year at UK and beyond? Is there any consideration for a redshirt? Yeah, I'm interested, just as transparent as you want to be, just kind of how those conversations went and how much you're wanting and expecting to play year one.
It honestly doesn't matter to me. Like I said earlier, just winning. So, whether that's on the court, off the court, just whatever Coach Pope wants me to do, I'm willing to do. I've played college basketball for a couple of years now. Like, I've been there, done that. But Pope's pitch wasn't. He honestly didn't have to pitch much. I kind of know what it is. How much they love their players, and that's Kentucky. If you think of Kentucky, you think of Kentucky basketball, and I don't think there's any other place like that in the country, because I know there's not. So he didn't have to pitch much, but when he called me, it was super special for sure. When he called me,
Spigopotamus says, "What is the most overrated condiment?"
Overrated condiment. I always go with ketchup, but I would say probably I don't know. Everybody likes barbecue for some reason. I just don't think I'm not a big barbecue fan.
Oh, that's a bad take, dude. That's a bad take. That's one of my.
Is that a hot take?
That's a hot take. Sean, is that a hot take?
Wow.
I'm a big barbecue guy.
Yeah,
Buffalo barbecue.
What do you put it on other than the regulars? Other than barbecue, what else do you put it on?
Like burgers, chicken tenders,
yeah,
grilled chicken sandwiches. It's a very versatile condiment.
That is true. I just always go with ketchup. I don't know why. I feel like that just.
Hey, it's Old Faithful, man.
I see your point. Yeah, it gets the job done for sure.
This one's a different. Cap fan says, "Who's your favorite Jedi, and why is it Obi-Wan Kenobi? Are you a Star Wars guy?"
Yeah. So my sister's a huge Star Wars fan, so she's always kind of throwing me on there. But it's definitely not. It's definitely Yoda. He gets the job done always. If he's ever when he's in there, he just does his thing. He provides some knowledge, and he gets it done. So it's probably him.
Talks backwards too, so you got to kind of just keeps you on your toes a little bit.
Very poetic he is.
Hey, you're poetic, but yeah, I feel it. CFE of KSR, how does it feel to be 85 inches tall? I don't think I've ever seen it referred to as 85 inches. So have you?
Yeah, I don't. I guess it feels good to be tall, but I'm not really sure. I get a lot of jokes when people asking me how tall I am, which was cool sometimes, and kind of annoying. But I guess it's cool to be tall and play basketball. So I guess it's good.
Are you done growing? What's the ideal? I'm ending my college career. Here's my height and weight that you want to kind of close out as you kind of go to the next stages after college.
I'd probably say with shoes 7'1", 7'2" for sure. So that'd be cool to be 7'2", and then probably 235, 240. That would probably be my preferred weight and height.
What will be your Kentucky officially listed? Are you kind of like one of those KD is 7 foot, but there's a 7 foot curse, so always lists himself as 6'11"? Are you? Is there an ideal kind of what you want to be listed at, and what will you be listed at?
It's honestly whatever they go with, but 7'2" would be cool. But I don't think I've officially measured since my freshman year. So it'd be cool. I don't know if I've grew. Everybody says I've grown, but who knows? So we'll find out in probably a couple weeks.
This one, CTRBBN, does he know Harry? How often do you get Harry Potter jokes?
I actually don't get that many, surprisingly. I always get tall jokes, but I think the Harry Potter jokes are honestly my favorite. Those are more clever, and it's I had one at the MAC tournament. Some girl made you're a wizard Potter or something like that, and I thought it was hilarious because that was the first one I got. So I don't mind that one for sure.
Tiffin Cat Fan 79 says, "What is the best appetizer at a restaurant? And why is it bacon in a glass from OBC?" Are you familiar with that?
I don't think I've ever been there.
OBC. I don't think I've been there. Sean, have you been there?
I haven't.
Do you have any other go-to appetizers?
I always go with chips and like salsa, or I usually sometimes go with pretzels and beer cheese. That's always my go-to for sure.
Great call. Bagel Pilgrim says, could he win a jump ball from a giraffe?
I think the giraffes got me on that one. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how tall giraffes are, but they're definitely gonna be able to just smack it, somehow.
Did you get giraffe jokes in middle school and high school when you started to become like, oh whoa, he's like a very clear 7-footer? Like, what was that transition like for you?
I feel like every tall kid, gets the, you kind of look like a baby giraffe out there, which I still am kind of, it's kind of, kind of a little bit of kind of rude, but whatever.
Expectations for Kate's 25. Besides Trent, Travis, Malachi, or Jasper, who's the toughest guy you ever had to face in Kentucky high school basketball?
Ooh, does that mean like in the state? Like who? Like
locally? Yeah.
Reed? Did they name Reed?
They did not. So I mean, I
don't know how they're not naming kind of like the good old Reed Shepherd down in North Laurel. He was definitely the most hard. I think he's got the up on me. I think he's got one more win against me. But he was definitely the hardest to go against, just because he's in the NBA now. It kind of speaks for itself. But he's a tough competitor, and he always had an edge against us. So he went all out against us. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like he turned on the little burners those games for sure.
Be real. Did you ever have any idea that he would become the Reed Shepherd that we saw at Kentucky? Because I saw him play 100 times in high school. Yeah. I always knew he was going to be good, but number 3 pick, good.
I don't feel like everybody's a liar if they say they don't think that he's going to be. If they thought he was going to be that good, but I always kind of say this to everybody. Everywhere he's played and everywhere he's been, he's always been, underrated. And everybody said somebody else is better, and he's always gotten the job done. Whether that's in AAU, in high school, in college, everybody's always saying, this kid's better than him. This kid's better than him. And then he's gone on the court, and then he's the best player on the court every time. So it's kind of it's hard to argue against. Was he going to be? Did I think he was going to be the number 3 pick? Probably not. But I thought he was going to definitely be in the lottery for sure. He just gets the job done. It's not the most fancy thing, but he's doing his thing. So good for him.
When you see a success story like him coming from where he did against the competition that he did, do you see that as kind of a hey, if he can do it, then I can, as you kind of take this step to Kentucky and hey, I can be a legitimate pro. I can prove myself on this stage and use this platform to, kind of catapult myself into pro status.
For sure. He kind of, everybody kind of knew who he was, but nobody really thought. Everybody thought he was going to be here for a couple of years. And then he was able to be here, use this platform at Kentucky. It's the biggest platform in the country, and he was able to, showcase what he was able to do, and he was able to, get out of here in a year. So, it's definitely something you see for sure.
I like this one from Jason Carter. Can we get your Kentucky basketball Mount Rushmore?
Ooh, I would probably go. De'Aaron Fox probably would be one of them.
I like that.
John Wall, for sure. Wow, I'm definitely new school. I'm trying to.
It's okay. There's plenty of talent. You got 45 options to work with, so you're fine.
There's so many.
Need a wing.
You need a wing. Who would I go with? I know it's hard to argue against Tyrese Mackey. Some of those games that he was able to, put up in Madison Square Garden were insane. And then I'm gonna have to throw Daniel Orton on there, because he trains.
Daniel,
so he's gonna be hating if I don't. But me and him have a lot of banter. I call him a bum always, but he's probably on there for me for sure.
You need one more. You need a 4.
I need a 4. So. I'm gonna go Nate Sestina. I feel like that's
my man.
I love him. The TBT. He was burning everybody. So I'm gonna say him.
Yeah, Daniel Orton was ready to whip everybody's ass, and then Nate Sestina actually did on the court. It was a
yeah. I don't know what his deal was. He was just trying to provide something to the team, I guess. But
yeah, we love to hear it. Same question from Kate's 25. Most underrated and overrated restaurant in Lexington.
Most overrated. I don't. There's not a lot of. I don't think there's a lot of overrated. Like I don't know what I would go with, but I'd probably go underrated. I don't think a lot of people outside of Kentucky know what Jeff Ruby's is, which is kind of wild to me. I always feel like people all know about the other ones, but all these Ohio people, I've been asking them about it. Like, have you ever been there? And they kind of don't know unless like you're in Cincinnati or Lexington. You kind of don't know.
What about overrated?
I don't really have it. Like, I feel like I don't know if there's like an overrated spot in Lexington to me, honestly.
That's a good answer.
What do you think? What would you go with?
See, Reece, it's a great call because you never want to like cancel any possibility, and you don't want to cancel any
good political answer for sure.
Can't give any any possible restaurant that could be an NIL deal for you. Like you can't you can't like cancel any of those out. So that's a great call. There are no bad restaurants in Lexington. They're all amazing, and would be great NIL partners of Reece Potter. I like this one. Yankee Cat says, regardless of your answer, what well, the first one was the red shirt, kind of what's to get stronger, expect to play that same question. But what is your strength and conditioning routine for the summer? So like, what have those conversations started of like, hey, here's what the next several months are going to look like for you to, get in game shape, get, kind of in SEC game shape, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those have been like kind of the main focal points right now. So, it kind of helps me. So I'm from Lexington. So as soon as my, because this is finals week for me. So that's why I'm still at school. So as soon as those grades get posted, I'm able to start working out with the strength and conditioning coach. So I'm really looking forward to that, getting a couple weeks in before everybody else gets there. So, it provides me a little bit of extra before, everybody else gets there.
John Galt for UK says, if you could play in any one game you've watched as a Kentucky fan, which game would that be? So like any of them, the biggest moments in recent memory for Kentucky basketball, you get to insert yourself into that historical moment. What would you want to be a part of?
I mean, I would have to say the Natty with Anthony Davis. I don't know. I'm not trying to take him out of the game. That's kind of be tough, but I would definitely they wanted to put me in for a couple minutes, get him a sub, get him a rest. That would definitely be cool to be able to say, I won a national championship.
Love it. And this one's a weird one to end with, but I guess I'm for it. Andy, go Cats. I'm going to word it exactly the way he did. Yeah, Steven, if you want to put that on the screen, because it's really weird, just to make sure he knows that I'm not making this up. Reece, what is your favorite twin-packed candy bar that has an orange rectangular packaging and contains a thick peanut butter core with a thin layer of milk chocolate on the surface?
It's actually kind of funny. I'm allergic to peanut butter. So it's like everybody's like, it's like everybody's like, Reese's and stuff like that. It's like, I don't know. I have no idea what it tastes like. So it's kind of funny.
But you would love to know what it would taste like for NIL purposes.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, you could fake
it. It tastes amazing, to be honest with you. I think it's a great product. It's a go-to. It's a staple for gas stations, to stop at.
Clark's Pump and Shop phone. Clark's Pump and Shop would be a perfect opportunity for you. What is your favorite candy then? If you're not a peanut butter guy,
I'm a big Hershey guy. So chocolate, just without the peanut butter. So anything chocolate, I'll eat it. So that's kind of my go-to. Gas stations.
We love to hear it. And if anybody else in the chat wants to throw any last second quick questions at Reece, I know we've been taking up his night. Don't want to last too much longer.
I've got one.
Go for it, Sean.
Reece coming back, you get to reunite with a teammate of yours from Lexington Catholic, who's a manager at UK in Miller. How cool is that?
He's honestly one of my best friends, so I'm really looking forward to it. I feel like all the coaches have already asked him, like, you're not allowed to clown around with Reece on the sideline, so I got to make sure to stay away from him from practice. But other than that, I love the kid, and then even some of the rest of them, the Van Dykes, I grew up with them. I've known them longer than I've known Miller. So looking forward to, being able to be back with them for sure.
I guess we'll roll with this. What is Kentucky getting in Reece Potter? Like what do you hope is going to be kind of the lasting impression that fans remember you for this upcoming season and the entirety of your Kentucky career?
I would say just a winner, coming every day, providing the most energy, whether that's on the court or on the bench, being able to just, hang another banner. So I feel like, not a lot of players are like remembered, but, they remember, what year the last time Kentucky won. So that's definitely going to be hopefully my lasting impression, being able to, hang number 9, maybe 10, 11, how many years I got left. So I'm looking forward to it.
And Jason Carter asked about who you model your game after. He already talked about it, D-Cuz and Nikola Jokic. So don't have to. And I think if there's none left, we could wrap this thing up with you. So yeah, we'll do this one last one. What do you expect the difference to be in how you were used at Miami versus how you expect to be used at Kentucky?
I feel like it's going to be really similar. I set a lot of screens, popped a lot, was able to, make some passes and shoot a lot of threes. So that's kind of how Kentucky plays, a more open flowing offense. And that's kind of how we did things at Miami. So, I'm looking forward to being able to just kind of do some similar things, but able to grow my game.
Awesome. Well, let's get you out of here with this one final message to BBN. Just, now that dust is settled on your commitment, you put pen to paper with the Cats, just how you feeling and just kind of your message for BBN as you weeks away now from making it on the campus.
I'm very excited to get to it, start getting to work. And, that's the goal of hang number 9. So I'm really looking forward to it, meeting everybody, meeting the fan base and being able to, grow a connection with BBN. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, Reece, man, this was an absolute blast. Whole bunch of random questions and starting from super serious to very 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 unserious. So appreciate you having some fun with us, man, and we're really looking forward to seeing you on campus and getting to know you a little bit better. And I'm sure BBN is feeling the same way.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.
Awesome, Reece. Well, we appreciate you, and we'll catch up soon.
Yes, sir.
Well, Shawn, how about that, man? That was very, very fun. I really enjoyed that.
Is that one of our longest player interviews with just like, I thought it flowed well with him. Like he gave great answers. He was a lot of fun. I thought that was great.
It just like understanding sometimes we're not very serious and we just joke around, and that's kind of how we do things. Asking about candy and Harry Potter and Star Wars, just really all over the place. But he was a very good sport, and obviously just an immediate fan favorite, like a guy that Kentucky fans are obviously going to be able to root for very, very quickly. It's a very, very cool thing to just kind of like you started the show saying that. It's just a very cool story we know Jasper, but there's a different, he's a top 25 recruit. Like it's a 5-star. He had offers from everybody. Malachi, Mr. Basketball in Kentucky. Like you knew that made sense. Trent Noah is already coming back. This one just kind of has that different feel to her where it's like, it's a full circle moment for him where he explored something different and is now coming home to the Bluegrass. It's a very, very cool story for him. And I think he's going to get a kick out of, starting this career. And I think for my money being a pretty awesome Wildcat.
It is cool to look at someone that, most guys, when they play here, they start here, right? And then they go elsewhere if they don't finish here, like the local kids. But to see it flipped and to go to a mid-major school and then transfer up a level to Kentucky, that is pretty cool for him. And I mean, he's just out of high school recently. I mean, it's not like it's been that long ago that he was playing at Lexington Catholic. So there's obviously a familiarity there for a lot of young people in this community too, that are just now graduating high school and going into college. So I'm sure that was pretty wild for them when they look up and see, wow, I was walking the halls at Lexington Catholic with him just a year or so ago, and now he's playing at Kentucky. So
I love that his best friend is a manager on the team. That's how cool is that?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I remember all those guys from coaching against them at Catholic. So I was like, and there are a lot of local 11th region high school basketball guys that end up being managers at UK, and quite a few of them now in that group. So pretty cool that those guys could continue, but also see a guy that they played against and others in Malachi. Like there's a lot of 11th region representatives, whether on the floor or maybe behind the scenes, that get to make an impact in the program. That's pretty cool.
Well, we got a couple quick messages and then a big week just in other news, and Ortega at the Combine and what Mark Pope had to say, some, kind of roster newsy updates there. So a lot there, but a couple quick messages from our friends. Optimal Living Services partners with clients to increase their awareness of issues and empowers them to develop their skills to manage these challenges. We believe that every individual has obstacles that they need to face, and that the services our team provide will
give hope to all of our clients. Every individual has the ability to grow from their problems, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, work, finance, or emotional struggles. We help clients learn their potential and join them in their journey. You can head to optimallivingservices.com to learn more about their services and meet their staff. You can also give them a call at 859-785-1030. And as always, special shout out to our friends at Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky and also the title sponsor of the Sources Say podcast. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money, 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations to special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You get to pick which sport you want to support when you sign up. Choose your sport and support with Club Blue. Combine week, we got to see Otega Oweh and Kobe Brea in action today. Obviously, this past weekend, seeing Amari Williams, Jalen Lowe, Lamont Butler, Andrew Carr in action at the G League elite camp. But this is, obviously in terms of immediate decisions, Otega is the one that we all have our eyes on, and kind of hanging on to every one of his words, whether it's the media opportunities, him on the court right beforehand talking to ESPN, talking through his decision. We heard from Mark Pope yesterday about Otega's decision, kind of, hey, what is the benefit of if he were to go pro? What is he good at right now if he were to keep his name on the draft? But also, if he were to return to Kentucky, what does he have to work on that could kind of elevate him to first-round status next season? Just kind of what's your thinking right now, Shawn, as Otega goes through probably the most important week of the offseason for Kentucky in terms of getting the most important player on the roster, hopefully back for another season. But obviously this week's going to go a long way in deciding that.
It is, and I still think that there's just significant value in another year at Kentucky, not just from an on-court of what he can become in another year of the system, but just also, financially, we know the amount that Otega could bring in from playing another year at Kentucky. Like, that price is going up from what it was for junior season. So when you look at it that way, I just think that there's a lot of security in another year at Kentucky to where you can get even better in another year of the system, but also you make a lot more coin for this thing, right, than what you were. Now I get and then you should still go be a pro a year from now. Now, if something makes sense and there's conversations and it's there, being a pro is priority number one for him. Like that, we know that has been made public. But at the end of the day, I think the best decision, in my opinion, and I think what will end up being the best decision will be just the value of playing another season here while making more, but also I feel like being even more ingrained in what this system can produce in a senior season.
Finished today, 10 points, 4 of 8 shooting, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block, 1 turnover in 21 minutes. I watched the whole thing. Otega was brilliant, really, really impressive, especially on the defensive end, just active, very clearly wanting to show that he's a two-way threat and somebody who wasn't just, don't just look at my shooting, just look at what I can be as a two-way guy. But really the only thing we've heard from him in terms, the testing and the all of the other agility drills, all of the other stuff, haven't heard a whole lot of anything in that regard about Otega, which it's a weird dynamic. I get it. If you're a Kentucky fan, I'm in the same boat where you are rooting for his individual success, but not to the point of where he's like flirting with legitimate first round. You're kind of in that like, hey, I want you to play well, but not too well. And I feel like he's living in that zone right now where I can watch him pretty relaxed and not feel like, oh man, like he's playing out of his freaking mind. Like Todd Pettiford, perfect example. Another guy who kind of has that stay and go decision. Todd played out of his mind today and has tested really well and has done some other things where it's like, man, this guy might have to turn pro. Otega hasn't gotten to that level. We heard, Cedric Coward with Duke, very similar. I mean, he's testing unbelievably well, shot well, moving into the first round boards where Duke, there's a very real chance that he turns down Duke to stay in the draft. So you're seeing other guys in that same boat where Ortega is just not quite there in terms of elevating his status to clear, obvious first round status, which is a great news for Kentucky fans that want him back. Nothing yet, Shawn suggests that he's doing anything to change his status as a maybe late second round pick to a likely undrafted pick.
That's exactly my thoughts on it and how I feel. I get that you're getting into that window now where decisions will be made, and maybe, Jack, maybe the decision's already been made, but it's just filling out, the remainder of this process. And like I said, this is an evaluation. Not only are you being evaluated, but you're kind of evaluating what you're eventually going to get into at some point, and you're evaluating, this go around, what you want out of this. So when you get the next opportunity to go through that again, you know what to expect going into it. That's the advantage of coming back to this. Is right now, out of all the guys, I think Otega Oweh knows this program the best. I know, BG's been here, but the minutes that Otega played, the role that he played, the shots that he made, being the performer that he was in the biggest moments, like, he knows this thing inside and out, and having that advantage and leg up, it's a big difference this November than what it was last November for him. And I just think that even though maybe averages don't get to the same number, not saying that he can't score more or meet that number, but I just think Kentucky's going to have some options and guys that can do some things that are going to maybe take a point or two away. It doesn't mean he's not a better player in year two, and he doesn't perform and look like a better potential pro this time of year from now.
Yeah, totally agree. And Pope, I think he said, and I have fun talking about it, where there was the question of, hey, what does he do better than anybody else? Hey, he's physical. He gets downhill, finishes well around the rim. He is a dog on both ends that a lot of guys, as we watched today against his peers in this same draft class, he was among the best on the floor at, kind of forcing steals, getting downhill, playing in transition, just thrived other areas in terms of playmaking. And, obviously the efficiency was where you wanted to be with shooting, but the quickness and the volume and the comfort of taking those shots needs to work on a lot of those things. So there's just so much upside. And I think there's not really a whole lot that I'm worried about right now. I'd be stunned. There's just so much to on the table in terms of NIL and what he can be in terms of role, that it's just it's handed to him on a golden platter for him to come back for one final season in Kentucky. I think that's what he's going to do. And nothing he did today or in the early stages of the combine have done anything to change that. On that note, though, and as we talk to Reece Potter, as we kind of wait for Otega's final decision, and I guess Jalen Lowe as well, but it's not a decision to be made really either. Pope talked about the flexibility of adding more pieces. I asked him at the press conference, you said pre-Reece you were wanting to add a couple more, and he said, we're still kind of exploring that a little bit. Kind of hinted that it all had to do with the house settlement and how that kind of finalizes. And if the roster limits get expanded to 15 as expected, they're sitting at 13 right now. And the new latest update with that, Shawn, is that the players that were on rosters before that had their positions removed, a Grant Darbyshire, a Walker Horn, a Zach Tao, they are grandfathered in. So there is a scenario based on my reading of it that you could take the 13 you have right now, plus, with Otega, add 2 more potentially, and the 3 walk-ons to have 18 guys on your bench and have as deep of a practice and scrimmage situation as you could possibly dream of at the Joe Kraft Center. I don't think that we're totally done yet in terms of what the offseason movement looks like for the Cats.
No, I don't think so either. As you kind of navigate, that these numbers can stretch to that, and it's just I laugh for a second because I still laugh at us recording a full blown episode about having 6 players at one point in the middle of June, just a summer or so ago, and then here we are talking that this thing can
we got to have 18 guys,
18, and just I'm like, man, John Calipari wouldn't know what to do with himself with all those dudes, sitting on there. But no, this is just. this roster construction from scholarships to walk-ons to just whatever, like it's such a long process now that you're adding things and looking at it. I mean, we're all the way now almost into summer and still getting to, we don't really know who all is actually going to be a part of this program and whatever role they're going to be. But knowing that the guys that they've got with scholarship and stuff, I think that they've got a solid group of guys. And then how important the walk-ons are to this too, and it comes to scout team and things. So if you get quality guys in your program, those guys are pillars and important pieces to what you do. So those decisions, Jack, are just as important, in my opinion, to the ones that you're actually putting on the floor, because you want good quality people in your program, and that they evaluate these top to bottom.
JJ and Pawpaw 2020, where can I get my grandson a Potter UK jersey? Love that. See, that is why we do this, is to learn about these kids and develop relationships with them early, so we can get JJ and Pawpaw 22 buying Reece Potter jerseys. We'll make sure that happens. The UK store will have them with NIL. Now you can have personalized jerseys for every player on the roster. It's beautiful. NIL for reasons like this is the absolute best. So thank you, JJ and Pawpaw, for making this worthwhile. That's why we do this. We love it. A couple news updates while we were gone, Shawn, that we didn't get to talk about, that I was sitting there on vacation like, I wish I could talk about it, tweet about it, write about it. This is awesome. First, kind of go through in order of events. Purdue added as an exhibition, potential preseason #1 team, Final Four contender at absolute minimum. As cool of an offseason update as you can dream of. And Pope was hilarious yesterday. Somebody said, what were you kind of thinking, adding the #1 team in the country? He said, we did what? Joking, obviously, but said, Pope's stance was, we want the smoke. We want the toughest schedule. We want the best NIL budget. We want everything. We want all of the smoke. We're the winningest tradition in college basketball history. We need to play Purdue in exhibition games. That's how we need to be building this thing. I love it. I don't think you could test this team any better. I think playing it at Rupp is incredible. I was over the moon seeing that update, Shawn.
That is really cool. That is really, really cool. And getting that here, to me, makes it even cooler, just to have that opportunity. And I mean, I'm a big fan of Matt Painter. I'm a big fan of what they do offensively. And that's going to be a cool thing to see what this Kentucky team looks like against that type of team at that early of a stage. Before you're ever really even getting to anything that matters, you get to see what this team looks like against quality, like not just quality competition, great competition. And to see that being done, I just think is such a huge deal. And just a few years ago, we were talking about, man, the home schedule just doesn't have anything to it. And now you get something that's not even a part of the actual schedule. And it's just like, wow, this is a cool thing to get to see that, and to see those two programs go at it.
It's nutty. Absolutely nutty. Just I am so excited for October basketball. And I remember last year, it was kind of a controversial thing. Like, I watched Arkansas and Kansas in October and said, this is the coolest thing I've seen in a long time. And I was tweeting about it, and everybody was like, you're obsessed with Arkansas. I'm like, no, I love the fact that we're getting to watch competitive high level basketball in a month that we're not used to seeing high level basketball. It's good for the sport. It's healthy for the sport to be able to get, instead of the stupid secret scrimmages where it's like, I've heard that the box score looks like this. No, it's something that fans should be able to go participate in. They should be able to watch it on television. They should be able to enjoy high level competitive basketball longer than even October. I mean, I know John Calipari is throwing the idea of summer basketball and, all those things out. I'm still in support of that. We need to build the brand of this sport and not make it an obsession with March the way the national talking heads do. This sport is good enough and needs to be talked about infinitely longer. And a way to do that is by bringing Purdue into Rupp Arena in October and present high level competition well in advance. Another way to do it, and kind of a controversial move here, and we'll just kind of go in order of when the events are happening. Louisville moved up to the earliest in the history of the rivalry, November 11th. It's going to be second game of the season. Weird definitely weird. Mark Pope said blame Pat Kelsey. I am very good at blaming Pat Kelsey for things. So your take on that and kind of getting away from that December kind of Christmassy spot that we're so used to, and kind of tipping off the season with the Battle of the Bluegrass.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very weird to get it before the football date. Like, I mean, I don't know how that'll feel. I wasn't a fan of where they had it in the calendar, and I don't think I was a fan of where it kind of just went from here to here, and it stayed within those 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, it's been New Year's Eve. It's been, before Christmas. It's been right after Christmas, and maybe there's a sweet spot for it, and this is kind of testing it out. But I'm so used to having that Champions Classic game being that big one, and that not really having another big one until you get to that first week of December and the SEC and ACC Challenge thing, now. But getting this early with that type of stakes on it, like it being a rivalry game, not the biggest fan of it, but I'm kind of cool that they get the Purdue matchup to kind of prepare them for a quality opponent early, and that's not at least the one, right? Like that there's at least something prior to that. But it is, when I saw that date, I was like, man, what went into this decision to put it there? Like I'd almost be a fan if this game was annually played like middle of conference play or something, or something in a weird spot like that, more so than the first week or second week of the season.
It does set up a really unique just dynamic of how the non-conference schedule set up, where you get Purdue October 24th, Louisville November 11th, Michigan State Madison Square Garden November 18th, Gonzaga Bridgestone Arena December 5th, and then St. John's added to the schedule December 20th. It is kind of like every other week, bang, 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 where there aren't kind of those lapses in the schedule where you're like, God, I'm sleepwalking through this week because it's Lipscomb and, Bucknell. Like you feel like you're invested in, okay, well, if we can get through this game on Tuesday, look what we have waiting for us on Saturday, way, way, way earlier than we're used to, where it kind of feels like it's the Champions Classic and then kind of everything else the way we've seen it. So I wish that we could maybe, Gonzaga up and add that St. John's game early. However we want to flip it. I'm just been so used to that Louisville December kind of Christmassy game, but the idea of having kind of that consistent week by week of highly, highly competitive games, it ain't the worst thing in the world. The immediate reaction, I think, it sucked, but it's not that big of a deal.
It's weird that it's just, I didn't know I'd ever have it to where, like, I mean, obviously we've had the Louisville Kentucky game competing with like some ratings when it comes to college football and bowl games and even some, NFL, I think even NFL playoffs at times, like it's been discussed and things like, but to get it at that point in the year where, it is still that peak of college football season and close. It's just one of those things that's just different, just because it's always like growing up and following this program, there was always a tradition that you knew you were going to see North Carolina, Indiana, Louisville 3 weeks in a row, 3 Saturdays in a row in December. That was just the tradition when I was a kid. Like now, seeing this thing move so early, you'll get used to it, and everybody will be just as fired up for it when it's here. But definitely different to see that on calendar that's how early these two teams are going to play.
Yeah, and I didn't even include the fact that Indiana's December 13th, so that's right before. So I mean, it is every single week you get something. I mean, that's awesome. That's incredible. I do really, really love that.
Think about this schedule when you peel it apart and look at just a few years ago. We're like, are we ever going to play Indiana again? And you're getting a exhibition game that will just, from competition standpoint, is something I never thought I'd see Kentucky do. And you're getting all these other things about the schedule. You're playing Gonzaga. Like at one point, I just remember I said it earlier, the non-conference schedule, we're like, ugh. Outside of just the big Champions Classic and then one or two more, the SEC Big 12 Challenge, when it existed. But now you look at this thing and there's so many games that you look at before you ever even see these teams play, and you find an excitement and the joy of looking ahead to seeing those matchups again. Like that's cool. And that doesn't even include who's going to be that opponent for like in the challenge and stuff. So we don't even know who that those things are going to be.
Give me Duke. Let's do it. We want all the smoke, baby. Let's do it.
Think about that. If you can get an exhibition like that at Rupp this year, and you get, obviously the Gonzaga game where it's being played, but then you go and you just throw Duke in at Rupp with getting Indiana back on the schedule, and you get
this schedule is bananas.
We've not even got to how we know the SEC is going to present a challenge, maybe not to the degree that it did this year, top to bottom, but it's still going to have those games that are just baked in where you're like, man, you're going to be facing a top 10 team in a program that how many times are you going to play Arkansas? Are you getting Florida twice? Like whatever, we just don't know what that's going to look like, but this schedule is going to be really
it's
fun.
It's going to be Duke, right? Like if you go through the ACC schools, who else is even in you have to work around CBS and champions. That's the thing. Like
if it's not Duke and it's not Carolina, right? Obviously you look at it, if you don't do Duke this year, you can't do Carolina next year, right? That'll be the champions, or
right.
So you can't do Carolina next year. And you're going to want that matchup in Chapel Hill at some point. You're going to want it at Rupp Arena. They're like, I just think it makes sense for this year to be Duke and even next year to be Duke. And you just flip them home and away. If it's not one of those two, do you give it Clemson again?
No way.
I just don't know.
No way.
And I'm looking at what is the ACC looking for here? Is Florida being the defending national champion? Is Auburn that premier team that they're looking like? What are you looking at if you're making this matchup conferences together? But I just think anything that's not Duke and Kentucky this early on in this challenge is you're missing and dropping the ball. And not just Duke, Kentucky, but getting Duke to come to Rupp Arena or sending Kentucky to Cameron Indoor. That's missing it if you don't have that, is what it is this year. That needs to be the next 2 years. And then you play the Champions Classic year and you maybe send Kentucky to Chapel Hill.
I'm for it, dude. I am all the way in on that. That sounds like an absolute blast.
And honestly, for a marketing thing and ratings, Jack, the way the ACC is right now, it's never going to be Louisville because you play them.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of Duke and Louisville, I don't really know if there's anything that's ever going to move the needle unless there's
they will move the needle.
Virginia at one point when they were winning a national championship and being that would have moved it some, but nothing else there moves it. Now,
NC State, baby, give me Will Wade. Hey, I'm in on that. I'm in on that.
Let's just Will Wade and LSU, something.
I'm in on the Will Wade era at NC State.
Hey,
you guys know I'm a Will Wade fan.
He'll have them making a deep run in the NCAA tournament pretty soon. Will Wade can coach. And I'm interested to see, though, what they go with matchups. And then you're going to have to look at what are the SEC teams that they value. Do they value tradition here with this? Do they value fan base and how big this thing is? Or are they going to stack this thing as we think Auburn's this, we think Alabama's this, and try to create matchups that way across the board? But I just think that you're striking out if you don't have Kentucky and Duke playing this year.
Yeah, I mean, they got to have some name brand intrigue there.
Help me out here, and maybe we have to go back, and maybe I'm showing, maybe this will end up being stupid, but has Kentucky and Duke played regular season back-to-back years ever?
Not in the
It's definitely recent, not
the recent Cal era.
You'd have to go way back if you ever found it. And I'm sure it would be. It'd have to be a long time ago. So, obviously, Kentucky, North Carolina have had the annual series home and away, that's happened. But to play that program 2 straight years would be kind of cool to see that matchup.
Yeah. And Jason Carter's is with it not being able to be Carolina next year. It will be Carolina this year in the challenge. That's a possibility too. I'm for either of them. I'm for any and all of the smoke in that regard. In the event decide, like, I know that they understand the value of the Kentucky brand and what it would mean. I mean, they can't stack. I know there was somebody joking about Cal, but like, they can't afford to use the opportunity to put Kentucky against one of the bottom feeders of the ACC. They cannot afford for the brand of that event to not utilize the Kentucky brand for the best version of the ratings hit.
Yeah, the only other thing that I could even think of that would go against it would be Kentucky's going to get the ratings because Kentucky's Kentucky, right? Like, Kentucky fans are going to watch the game, but yet you miss that. You get Kentucky Duke, it's going to just poof, like, numbers are going to go crazy. Or Kentucky Carolina.
Even Kentucky Cal is going to be here because of the Kentucky fans, but Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, any of those heavy hitters takes it to a whole other level that I just don't think that they'll be able to avoid. I Duke or North Carolina, I'm in on it. We'll kind of start wrapping this thing up. I know we went along with Reece. Very grateful for Reece's time. He was absolutely incredible on the show. St. John's, man. Well, how do we feel? How do we feel about Ricky P and getting that head-to-head battle? State Farm Arena, Atlanta, Catlanta, Christmas time.
Were we gone that long that all this has happened? And
yep,
man,
that's why I was losing my freaking mind. I wasn't able to talk about it.
We just both need to go to California more often. The news.
No kidding. Yeah.
Like, no, that's really cool too. And seeing those two, like, we've always, I guess I just always thought that matchup, the first one, would happen at Rupp, but seeing them added to that event adds something to it for me. And that one has actually needed something, in my opinion. I don't think it's ever really been a great product outside of the thrillers that Kentucky and Carolina have played. I don't think it's been a great event.
Kentucky's lost in every other freaking matchup. Like,
they have, and it's just been ugly matchups. Like, some of the UCLA games have been hard to watch. The Ohio State games, none of them to me have even been entertaining to any. Like, one, Kentucky struggled in all of them, but to get this one there. And then you obviously have had locations where that thing's played at Madison Square Garden. It's been played in other videos. So just seeing, them in that matchup and seeing Pitino coach against Kentucky, but also against Mark Pope, that's a pretty cool thing too. So I think they did a huge thing for that event to sell it even more now that tickets have always struggled because of where it's always been in the calendar and then the matchups itself, except when it's Kentucky, Carolina, like in Atlanta, that crowd was good a couple of years ago. But this one, it's going to be a sellout, regardless of the date.
Mark my words. We heard, God, I hate having whenever that happens. We already had Mark Pope at the podium yesterday talking about that matchup and saying, hey, Rick, I want the smoke. Wear your Sunday best. I'm wearing my Sunday best. We're going to get all white suit Rick. We're going to get the best suit version of Mark Pope. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm very, very excited. It's going to be the denim game. It's going to be the 30th anniversary of the 96 championship. We kind of talked about it ad nauseum over the course of the last year, basically since the first time Mark Pope put a microphone in front of his face. We've heard about this 30th anniversary, the 96 team, Rick Pitino's return. We thought it'd be at Rupp. It didn't happen. But now that we get it, and we already hear Pope kind of laying the groundwork about what we're wearing and what both sides are going to be wearing, the denim uniforms exist. We know they exist. That's going to be the game. And I'm very, very excited for it. Not scoop. That's my educated guess, my hunch. I know the uniforms exist. I'm just waiting for the unveiling. There is no better opportunity, no other time really to wear those uniforms than State Farm Arena, Catlanta, Kentucky, St. John's, Mark Pope versus Rick Pitino. There is no better time.
Rock the blue jeans, man.
Are you for it? Like, do you think they're going to look good? Like, were you a fan in real time of those uniforms?
I was so young that I didn't even really notice the difference. But when you look back at the pictures, it's like, holy cow, they were actually rocking jorts and winning a national championship. So I just think it's going to be one of those things that when it happens, it's going to be like, wow, like this is actually pretty cool. You're seeing history and a great Kentucky team kind of being honored by wearing them, right? With Mark Pope on the sidelines. I think Mark Pope should just rock his denim jersey and jump underneath something. So that's really cool, though, that those do exist and that you're going to see those brought back, because that was probably an era that you never thought you'd ever see again.
Heck yeah. All right, let's wrap this thing up. I know we've been yapping for a long time. Biggest takeaway for me, in my opinion, talking to Pope yesterday, was asked about all the kids. What are your thoughts on Jaden Quains? What are your thoughts on this kid? What are your thoughts on this kid? The one that made me go, that's new. That is, something that we have not heard from him. Talking about Jasper Johnson, he was asked about kind of both Kentucky guys in passing together. What are your expectations for year one of Jasper Johnson and Malachi Moreno? And Mark Pope just kind of swung for the fences and said, I think Jasper Johnson is a superstar. I expect him to come in here and be great. And for every freshman, there's a learning curve in terms of physicality, intensity of the game, the relentless physicality and intensity of the game. But Jasper Johnson has got a really, really incredible skill set. He's one of those guys. There are very few players who can just go get a shot whenever they want it. He can do it. He's got an ability to get skinny and kind of do things defensively that are going to be surprising. I think he's got an incredible upside on the defensive side of the ball. Also, I think he's crafty, slippery nature where he can get downhill. But maybe the kind of biggest head turner there, I expect him to be like, he needs to come here and be great. And that's what he wants to do. That's what we want from him. And not just a hope, but an expectation for Jasper Johnson to come in and be a superstar at Kentucky. Your thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, that's not it's not tampering expectations at all, right? Like it's not taking them down. That's actually elevating them. So I think that's a massive comment or comments about him. That one, it's not as much added pressure as it is added confidence, that when Jasper gets to hear his future head coach say those things about him, that I think that the expectation within Jasper's mind is like, I'm coming here and these guys believe in me to be what I want to be and what they think I can be. So I think that gives you confidence as a fan too, to look at that's what he sees and what he's going to be here.
It has kind of a Reed Shepherd vibe to it, where it's like, do not minimize yourself for being a Kentucky boy. Like, don't look at this journey for yourself as you get to live out the dream of, wearing your hometown uniform. Like, that's cool. There's value in that. And he talked about the value in that. But to say, we expect you to come in and be a superstar for us because we recruited you as a premium product. Again, they did not get a hometown loyalty discount to land Jasper Johnson. If the money was not right, he was going to North Carolina, he was going to Alabama. They had to pay a premium to land a premium product. So I appreciate that from Mark Pope to say, no, we're not going to play this living out the dream to play it at Kentucky, as cool as it is. And it is, but we're not doing this for feel good, moral victory stories. Like, we're doing this because we expect it and we demand that from you because that's what we're paying you to do. So I think there's kind of a mutual respect there of ability and trust in saying like, hey, you wanted to be this, we're going to now treat you as such. So I love it. I loved hearing that. And I think he's capable. I think Jasper Johnson's going to be a really, really good player. And I'm glad that his head coach believes so as well.
I think so. And I'm telling you, if the confidence that Jasper can take from that Mark Pope puts that out there publicly at a podium is, I think, a big deal too. To be like, all right, this guy sees what I can be. He believes what I'm going to be. And he's not just saying that I can, he's saying that I will. And that's where I think the confidence comes from with that.
Yeah, you as a coach, you know that as much as anybody, that it's about your belief in the guys just as much as it's about their belief in themselves. So, Shawn, this was a lot of fun, man. Shout out to Reece Potter. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed getting to know him, sit down with him a little bit, and just kind of chop it up for very unserious things and very serious things. So I appreciate him being a good sport about it and interacting with BBN in the way he did. I'm sure the KS board members will appreciate kind of their indirect one-on-ones, and obviously the questions here in the chat. That was a lot of fun. So Shawn, I'm sure you felt the same way about having good old Reece on.
I do. 11th region represent, man.
Shout out 11th
across the roster now.
Absolutely. Well, let's wrap this thing up. Shawn, where can fans find your work?
It's a great question. I think it's _ Coach S. Smith.
Sounds about right. If you're not following,
if you're not following me by now, you're probably not going to. So
that's on you. At Jack Pilgrim KSR, go subscribe to KSR Plus. You can get questions that you ask told on this podcast the way that those guys were with Reece tonight. Make sure you go subscribe there. Go subscribe to this KSR YouTube page. We're like a couple hundred away from 50,000, so make sure you do that, or else Stephen Peak is going to get fired. So make sure he gets to keep his job. So for Jack Pilgrim, for Shawn Smith, for Reece Potter, for Stephen Peak, we appreciate you guys, and we will see you next time. Go Cats.